So a couple of weeks back I responded to a rather emotional video by a pastor's wife, Lucille Williams. She was upset that her father is an atheist and that so far she had failed to convert him. Now she's released a video in response to mine, one which is actually longer than the original, though I honestly don't get why. She doesn't seem to actually say a whole lot. Now I'll link the video down below as always, so you're free to check it out. But for this video I just wanted to compare what she said in both videos, specifically about her father and how he reacts to the mere thought of religious conversation. So we'll start with William's original video. I've taken a few clips to give you the general feel of what was said, but in a much more concise fashion. I wish I had the live timestamp on screen, but I'm away at the moment and my laptop just hates rendering timestamps, crashing every time I try. But hey, this is the exception to the rule, so hopefully I've earned your trust by now. So you can go watch the original or my response video, linked below. Anyway, this was how she presented her father and his response to her on the topic of religion and God.
What I want to talk about today is a little on the heavy side because I want to talk about my dad, and my dad is an atheist. And that's really sad. It's been really sad to have a dad that's an atheist. He just doesn't believe in an afterlife. He doesn't believe that there's a God, so he has no hope. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why don't you just share Christ with him? Why don't you just tell him about life after death, that Jesus is real and that God is real and that he can have a personal relationship with him? Well, yeah, I have many times, and even last night we were sharing some scripture with him, but he's an angry atheist, so anytime we bring it up he gets really angry. So there's always that balance between, like, when do you say something and risk him getting angry and maybe pushing him further away, or when do you say something and you know, maybe bring him a little closer.
Now there's a specific clip there I just want to play for you lot one more time. Why? Well, because it informed my response as a whole. And that was this segment in particular.
But he's an angry atheist, so anytime we bring it up he gets really angry. So there's always that balance between, like, when do you say something and risk him getting angry and maybe pushing him further away.
That's not ambiguous, that's actually rather explicit as a statement. Move forward to after my response has gone up and Williams has published a response of her own, elaborating on what was said. We're going to watch several clips from that in a second, and I'm sure that the general sense of what she's talking about is going to be much the same. Perhaps there was some error of nuance on either her part in sharing her story, or my part in understanding what she said. So if we could just play those clips, please.
And my book happens to sit on my dad's coffee table at his house, and he and my mom love to display it, and they're very proud of me and my work and my writing, and they respect that I'm a Christian, and they respect that I'm a pastor's wife. He talks about only having so much time left, and I only have this much time and that much time, and a lot of people are assuming that it's because of his age, when in reality, it's been like that, like, my whole life. That's just my dad. That's just our family. We laugh about a lot of things. And my dad's the first one to be at a restaurant and go, oh, I got this. I should have got that. We could have done this. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. We joke about it. Like, he always is, I could have done this. I could have had that. He brings up God a lot. Even though he doesn't believe in God, he does bring it up. And he says he's totally fine with the fact that I believe in God. But he's an angry atheist, so anytime we bring it up he gets really angry. So there's always that balance between, like, when do you say something and risk him getting angry and maybe pushing him further away. He brings up God a lot. Even though he doesn't believe in God, he does bring it up. And he says he's totally fine with the fact that I believe in God. But he's an angry atheist, so anytime we bring it up he gets really angry. So there's always that balance between, like, when do you say something and risk him getting angry and maybe pushing him further away.
Look, I'll be the very first to acknowledge that there's a reasonable degree of nuance that can be had on numerous topics, and said nuance may require clarification. but there's a huge difference between that and the 180-degree stunt you just pulled. You were very clear in your original video in how you were presenting your father as this angry atheist, a title which is routinely used to browbeat any atheist that simply refuses to roll over and accept the theist cries of damnation. And this really seemed to strike a chord with a lot of people, especially my American audience, many of whom have their own Lucille Williams in their life. And I'm glad that you acknowledge that your father has a rather morbid sense of humour that is so well known to you that you state, quote, "We laugh about a lot of things," end quote, in relation to said humour. I wasn't willing to play internet doctor and try to diagnose your father, but I know a lot of my fans were worried that he may actually have some form of depression. I just hope that your latter telling of his person is the truth, and not your original one. Not for my sake though, you coming out and rewriting what you originally said in a mutually exclusive manner flushed away a couple days' work, which, yeah, sort of irks me. But I'd rather lose a couple days' work and find out that someone isn't depressed than be right and find out that they are. Not to mention, whilst my original advice is done away with, this does act as a great example of how Christian apologists change stories to suit their needs. You originally needed to frame your father as an angry atheist who couldn't handle you bringing up God, just so you'd have some tearjerk of a video you could sell your viewers your book on. But the moment I called out your actions for what they were, unhealthy egocentrism, you started backpedaling at breakneck speed. Now you still maintain that both videos were true in the comments on your video, so I wanted to do this video to show just how ludicrous a notion that really is. And call me a dick, but I honestly want this video to pop up every time someone searches for one of your books. Why? Well, because just as easily as you lie to me and the rest of your channel's viewers, you can very easily lie to everyone who reads your book. I want people to know that Lucille Williams, Christian author, is a known professional liar. I can't begin to contemplate why you do it, whether the money is good or if you just like the feeling of framing yourself as the poor Christian woman. But that's irrelevant. The problem is the fact that you do it. So buyer beware, the contents of Williams' book may hold about as much truth as the Marvel franchise. Now before I go, I just wanted to cover a point I discussed in my original video, but you and even a few of my viewers seem to have ignored. And that's the justification for what you stated you plan to do. We'll play a clip from your most recent video.
But here's the thing, this is my perspective, and I know a lot of you are not going to agree with this, but if I believe in a heaven and a hell. Now, if when we go, there's nothing, then okay, no harm, no foul. I feel like I'm living a moral life, and if there is nothing after this life, and I believed this way to my life, if I believed I should love others, and I should love God and worship God, I don't feel like I've done anything wrong. So if I'm dead and that's it, and there's no afterlife, then okay, fine. There's no harm, no foul, no big deal. But if there is a heaven, and Jesus is the way to heaven, and we die and we find that out after we pass on, and if I could have told you about this heaven and I didn't, then I believe that's very unkind. And in my life, I've had family members who were nearing the end of their life, like literally on their deathbed, and they asked for me, and I went and I spent time with them and I talked to them, and they asked me about the God that I believe in, and I talked to them, and they accepted Christ before they died. And so when I was saying that in the end, if that's what happens to my dad, I'd be more than happy to be there for him.
Ignoring the Proto-Pascal's wager, which was known to be broken at the time due to its assumption that no God or the Christian God are the only two options, and that being a Christian comes with no cost, you still fail to tackle what I ended my last video with. The fact that this reaction is not reasonable for a person who believes in an all-knowing and all-just deity. It shows a complete lack of trust in said entity, should they actually exist. If you genuinely believe your God to be all-knowing, then surely they'd know your father's reasons for not believing. And if they were all just, they wouldn't punish someone for simply using the brain you claim God gave them. Because here's a fact you keep pretending isn't true in your video. Belief cannot be chosen. There is no choice in belief. You can pretend to believe in something, you can't actually force yourself to believe it. So, yeah, your dad can say he's a believer, but an all-knowing deity would see right through that. And if he's just a believer because he fears hell, an all-knowing deity would also see right through that. But going back to justice, what I mean is that justice without reason is simply arbitrary ruling, something which has no connection to true justice. Even you don't treat your God as if they existed as you define them. You don't treat them like an all-knowing judge, dishing out just desserts to people based on how they live. Instead, you treat your God like a monster from an 80s B-flick horror movie where breaking some arbitrary rule will result in your torment. To further my point, I can bring up how your father could be the most amazing person, yet not believe in God, and potentially burn for an eternity as a result. Meanwhile, any number of child rapists could convert a second before they passed away and enter heaven. That is your idea of justice. Now, I played clips from your second video rather than go through it as a whole, as most of it was spent building fake problems and repeating them over and over again. Nobody responded the way they did simply because we disagreed. We took issue due to the predatory nature you admitted you partook in. And yeah, I don't buy your assertion that this isn't predatory. If you hang around waiting for the sick to weaken before pecking out their eyes, you're a vulture and you better damn well learn to live with that fact. So yeah, I think I said all I really want to say. Do note, I'm not going to be partaking in bad attempts to soften the person I'm talking to with flattery, by the way. I know Williams attempted to do so at the end of her video. I don't care for that false display. But to my viewers, take care and I'll see you around. Hi there, I'd just like to say a few things here at the end of the video before you go. First, I'd like to thank everyone who's ever donated to the channel via Patreon, giving a special thanks to the following people: Hannah Banghart, Matthew Kovac, John Schoenrock, Alexander Williams, Ernst Puna, and Daniel Martinez. Your support has ensured this channel its ability to grow over the years, and really is the only thing that manages to keep the channel afloat. I'd also like to ask that you comment down below and like this video, as well as subscribe and follow Essence of Thought on Facebook and Twitter. Please also consider following Atheist Alliance International on Facebook, an organisation dedicated to helping atheists around the globe. Any comments utilising language which insults others on the basis of perceived gender, sexuality, ethnicity or ability both mental and physical will be removed immediately, and the commenter may be blocked on the moderator's discretion. Let's keep this space one which upholds the humanist values. Thank you.